Have you got a tiny drone under 250 grams and you're wondering, do I need IDs, do I need tests or apps, or can I just take off? In this video I'll explain the rules so you can fly safely without getting fined or into trouble, and I'll also explain what changes when you go over 250 grams. G'day friends, if you don't know me, my name's Brett. I'm a photographer and drone pilot, and I've been doing this as my day job for around 10 years, and I'll keep all the regulations in plain English, beginner friendly, and I'll also explain terms and jargon as we go. So let's break this down into 5 sections. We'll go US, Australia, Canada, UK and Europe. Now if I've gotten any of these details wrong, please let me know nicely in the comments. I spent a long time getting this information and it got to be way more complicated than I expected, especially for the UK requirements. And don't worry, I'll put timestamps for each country in the description so you can jump to the section that's relevant to you. Anyway, let's get started with Australia. If you're flying in a sub 250 gram drone in Australia, you don't need to register or get accredited at all, but you must follow CAS's safety rules, which is don't fly higher than 120 meters and keep 30 meters away from people, never fly over crowds and avoid populous areas like busy parks and beaches. If you're flying for work, even with a tiny drone, you'll do these 3 quick admin things. Number 1 is to get an ARN, which is your aviation reference number. Think of it as your CASA ID, like customer ID, which is free to get. Number 2 is you need to do an RPA operator accreditation, which is short online learning plus a quiz, which is short online learning and a quiz, which is also free. And you need to also register the drone that you use for work, which is currently around $45 a year. Later on, if you buy heavier gear or you want to do more complex jobs and you want to use a larger drone for work, you'll need the REPL, which is Remote Pilot License, if you're a lone operator like I am. Or you'll need an REOC, which is a Remote Operator Certificate, and this is for businesses that want to run multiple drones and have multiple pilots. But keep in mind that every pilot you employ must also have an REPL as well. Okay, let's do the UK. For any drone under 250 grams with a camera in the UK, you or your organisation need an operator ID, a flyer ID, that's the theory test. That isn't required for under 250 grams, but it's recommended, and your legal altitude limit is 120 meters as well. Now the UK is very different to everywhere else because their flying is split by how close you get to people, not by whether it's a hobby or work. And this seems very strange to me, but everyone does it differently, so you'll be in one of these 3 classes. Class 1 is Open A1, and it means you can fly over people but not crowds and not within 30 meters. Open A2 means you're further away from people, more than 30 meters for instance. And Open A3 is far from people and built up areas, so if you're in the country or something like that. Now if you want to fly closer to people than 30 meters, you'll need the A2 COFC short theory course. So which one are you? Well, if you are a sub 250 gram drone and you're just doing it for recreational purposes, you are Open A1. You'll need an operator ID if your drone has a camera, but your flyer ID is optional. Now if you're sub 250 gram drone as well, but you're doing it for business, you also need the Open A1. But if a company owns the drone, the organization gets the operator ID. Now if you're over 250 grams, this is the part that is super confusing. Often A2 or A3 will be what you are in, unless it's class marked C1. To fly closer to people, you need to get the A2 COFC, which is just accreditation to say you can fly closer to people. And if your plan doesn't fit any of these open rules, you have to go specific, which is a CAA operational authorization, commonly called PDRA01. Now this sounds completely confusing, and it is, but what it basically means is you need special permission to fly in certain areas and certain scenarios. Now all this is great if you can understand it, but some of it is also being revised for more changes later. So currently these are the rules until January 1st, 2026. Think of it this way. A1, A2 and A3 are like social distancing for drones. A1 you can say hey, hello. A2 you got to stand a bit further back. A3 you got to live in the countryside. Okay, let's talk about Europe. Europe basically has a flying union. It's called the EASA, which is European Union. And when you see these EASA member areas, think of all of Europe plus Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Switzerland. So it's all one harmonized framework. So all you have to do is deal with the National Aviation Authority, which is called the NAA, in the country where you live, and you can fly anywhere in Europe, except restricted zones of course. So how this works is if you have a sub 250 gram drone, that is drone under 250 grams of course, that has a camera or a sensor, you the operator register with your home country NAA. If it's under 250 grams with no camera, sensor or it's a toy, no registration is needed at all. When you register your drone with the NAA, you get an operator ID and it works across all EASA zones, one ID for many countries. And your restrictions will be the standard open A1, which is over people but not assemblies or crowds. You can't be within 30 meters, and you also can't go above 120 meters. Now, to work out where you can fly, well, each country publishes a UAS geozones, which is their local no-fly areas. So check each country's national map before you travel. And one last note, no, you can't register in the cheapest country and then use it everywhere. It has to be in the country where you live. Okay, let's talk about Canada. In Canada, you'll be dealing with Transport Canada, and in Canada, micro drones means under 250 grams. You don't need to register it and don't need a pilot certificate, but you still fly responsibly. And two terms that you'll hear a lot is VLOS, which is visual line of sight. You can see the drone with your own eyes, not just the phone screen. Or SFOC, which is Special Flight Operations Certificate, and that just means you need permission for special cases. So since April 1st, 2025, you need an SFOC to fly a microphone. That's a microphone. A micro drone at any advertised event like a festival or something like that. And if you buy a drone that's greater than 250 grams in weight, there are two tracks you can take. Track number one is called Basic, which is uncontrolled airspace, and you can fly up to 122 meters, which is 400 feet. You can't be within 30 meters from bystanders, and you need the basic exam plus registration of your drone. The next option is called Advanced, and it's closer to people or in controlled airspace, and it needs an advanced exam, plus a flight review, plus you need the right drone safety declaration, which is usually a NAV Canada authorization, which you can get via the NAV drone app. But Canada are changing this as well, and Canada's mid-2025 updates roll out in two stages with more changes around November 4, 2025, including new extended visual line of sight options. Just check Transport Canada's summary page before you fly. So far, in my opinion, I think Europe and Canada probably have the best regulations when it comes to drone flying. Now for the US, if you're flying recreationally in the US with a sub 250 gram drone, two big things you have to know. Number one is every recreational pilot must pass a trust test, which is free and it's online, and carry proof with them at all times that they pass that test. And number two is registration and remote ID. If your drone weighs 250 grams or less and you fly it exclusively for recreation, registration isn't required and remote ID isn't required either, because remote ID applies to drones that must be registered. If you add heavy accessories and tip over the 250 gram mark, then you must register and comply with remote ID. So where can you fly and how high? Well, you've got to stay under 400 feet in Class G, which is uncontrolled airspace. In controlled airspace, near airports and stuff like that, you have to get low altitude authorization, notification, capability authorization in an approved app. You have to keep visual line of sight, yield to crewed aircraft, and follow your safety guidelines. A really cool app is the FAA's Before You Fly, which shows airspace status and temporary flight restrictions. Now, that long acronym I said before, which is the LAANC, is available through approved service providers. Now, if you're going to fly for business, which is any weight, you need a Part 107. You need the Remote Pilot Certificate, Part 107. All Part 107 drones must be registered and comply with remote ID, even if under 250 grams. You still have to keep visual line of sight. You still have to stay under 400 feet or within 400 feet of a structure. And you have to use LAANC drone zone for controlled airspaces as well. So here are some apps that may actually help you in your flying journey. In Australia, use the CASA verified app called OpenSky, or CASA's own tool called Can I Fly There. In the UK, use Drone Assist, which is a company called Altitude Angel, to visualize restriction zones. In Europe, I couldn't find an app that did any of this stuff, so just consult your country's UAS geozone map. In Canada, use NAV drone, which shows geozones, unless you request controlled airspace permission if you need it. And in the US, use Drone Assist or Before You Fly, which is the FAA's official app. And although tiny drones aren't rule-free, you now know the heights you can fly, distances you need to keep away from people, what IDs you need, and what changes you need to do when you go to a heavier drone. And now that you know where you can fly your sub 250 gram drone, you can go out and purchase one and have some fun. And if you're not sure which drone to purchase, I suggest you watch this video right here, because we'll give you a few great options. Thanks for watching.